Okay, I am live. We've been having some real technical difficulties, guys. I'm sorry, everybody, about that. Um, Hopefully, you can hear me. If not, uh, you can hear me. All right, that's good. Oh man, what a day, guys! What a day. Let me reorganize. I have this all laid out really pretty and nice, uh, and you know, there's a old saying that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Well, things are going wrong, but we're going to make the most of it, and that's okay. What rule is that? Whose rule is that? Somebody should know. Somebody knows what rule that is. Get everyone over. All right. Whew. Well, I am going to try my damnedest to make it clear that this is the new stream. No, Aaron, this is not the Dropkick Murphys, unfortunately. I should have played them, though. I actually have them on vinyl. If you get enough of these pours in me, I might put the Dropkick Murphys on, actually. I got all kinds of fun whiskey products around here. It was all set up so pretty, but best laid plans of mice and men. Let's see if I can still show you. Okay. Yeah, here we go. This is closer to what I had in mind. So, got a couple different products. I think that's there. Uh-oh. I look like the same? No, who knows? Fuck it. Do you want help? No, we'll make it work. We got it. We got it. Okay. So that was a rocky start to the day, but we're making it work, guys. I've got 3 different whiskeys here, all of them Irish. Happy St. Patrick's Day. It's a wonderful day. It's a good day to be streaming something. It's a good day to sit down and drink with friends and enjoy the indoors. I've been really glad to be able to do these streams with people. It's been a lot of fun. I've got great fans. You guys are the best. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for staying engaged. Hopefully, people will come in and join from the other stream. I really screwed up there and had some sort of stream created that wasn't the right thing. I'm going to figure that out later. So in the future, they'll be a lot smoother. But for today, I've got my nice little Luck of the Irish 4-leaf clover that my girlfriend Yolanda crocheted for me just moments ago. What's up, Jess? Glad you could join. So I've got a couple of wonderful little things here. We've already reviewed this on the channel, the Method and Madness. This is the single grain. Trevor, yeah, Yolanda and I are both doing good. We're keeping it together the best we can. Obviously, not everything goes according to plan, but she and I have been taking every precaution we can, and we've been in contact with medical professionals as much as we need to. So that's all you can do, guys. All you can do is the best you can do. You put in the time, put in the effort, and whatever happens, happens. So, but enough about that. I want to focus on this because so many people in the world think of one whiskey when they think of Irish whiskey. And I know you all know what that is because you're all thinking about it. Jameson. Jameson has the market cornered on Irish whiskey. But there's so much more out there in the world of Irish whiskey. Jameson is one microcosm of a huge world of whiskeys. Yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day to you too, Miranda. Thanks for joining. Jameson actually owns several other brands. I talked about this a little bit in the Method Madness video, in part because Method Madness is actually a small distillery that's wholly owned by the same company that owns Jameson. Matter of fact, Jameson does not own that company. That's a brand under a larger conglomerate company. But people don't think about the conglomerate company. They think about Jameson. So there are other brands out in the world, and some of them are doing wonderful things. I specifically am looking forward to trying this. I just cracked this moments before going live here. And this is called Tipperary. I think I'm saying that right. Tipperary. It's an Irish boutique whiskey, but it's got some really interesting notes on it. So they limit the batches to 1,916, and it's non-chill filtered, 47%, alcohol. and it's a single malt Irish whiskey, but it hasn't been in the U.S. before. This is the first release to the United States. They've got some tasting notes in the back. I'm not going to read those. I want to try to do a fresh taste before I go into that. But I'll just cover them up so you can tell that I'm not cheating. But they've been making whiskey for a while in small batches. They do six first fill bourbon casks that they then put this Irish whiskey in. And what that'll essentially do is it lightens it up, it sweetens it. A lot of times Irish whiskey is going to be put in old Scotch casks or even sherry casks or some other liquor's cask. And the elements of the flavor that are in that wood will drastically affect how you perceive the flavors in that whiskey. So much of what goes into these whiskeys really is a function of the wood, especially the older ones. I don't remember if this has an age statement on it. I don't believe it does. No, there's no age statement on this, which people get caught up on the age statements a lot. I like age statements because when you see on a whiskey, this thing's aged 12 years, you know what you're getting exactly. The youngest whiskey in that blend is 12 years old. Sometimes there's a lot older whiskeys in the blend, but you still have a good sense of what kind of product you're going to get. If you have an age statement of 25 years, for example, with the Lefroy guy reviewed on the Patreon, that's necessarily going to be very woody and smoky and rich and deep, not just because it's an Islay Scotch, but because it's had so much time on wood. And something that's younger, if you see let's call it a 5 or 6 year age statement, you're going to expect a lot more bright and fresh notes from that because the wood hasn't had as much of an effect. Different people also like this age statements because it tells you, what kind of flavors to expect, and people learn what to look for. I got a good one here. I watch your reviews on whiskey and then go back and watch my videos, and I don't know why I try. You're so full of info. Great job. I learn something here all the time. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate that, Chris. It's I love doing this. I love making these videos, but I know you can do it too, man. This just takes shameless charisma and and not being afraid to throw yourself out there. And I know you're doing that, so keep going, brother. But there's so many good whiskeys in the world of Irish whiskey, so I'm really excited to try something that most people haven't seen or had their hands on. If you notice, I don't have any Jameson or Redbreast at the table. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Irish whiskey. Partly because the typical palate notes for me on an Irish whiskey are pretty sharp. Now, some of that comes from how they're distilling the whiskey. They typically are going to go with something that's going to give you a thinner product and less robust. And part of it's the environment, the climate. I really have grown up on bourbon, grown my palate, I should say, on bourbon. I wasn't suckling bourbon out of a bottle or anything, but I've developed my palate on bourbon, which is sweeter, stronger, and going to have more wood notes. The heat and the humidity of Kentucky and of Texas and of the United States in general makes the wood have more an effect quicker. So some of the whiskeys that are coming out of Texas, they're going to be really strong and kicking your butt in terms of woodiness and maybe some pepper and barrel tannins after only a couple years in wood. Whereas these are going to be significant amount of time they're spending in wood in Ireland, but they're not going to have nearly that bite. And a lot of people like that. One of the things that people really like about Irish whiskey is actually something I tend not to like. And it's that it's got a lot of smooth, sharp single notes. You're not going to have this rounded, robust flavor like you're going to get with an Islay Scotch where there's smoke and fruit and grain and all this other stuff happening. These are going to be more of a singular journey. And that's not to say they're going to be simple. Sometimes that journey can be very long and complex and interesting, but it's not going to be dragging you in different directions and jerking you around. That's not don't make that a gift, please. You're going to be right in the pocket of where they're trying to get you from a flavor perspective. So part of the reason I do these chats is to engage with you all. I mean, I can sit here and talk about this for hours and probably wear everyone out. But if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, if you have any anything you want to share with the group, I'm going to make the picture a little bit bigger because of how I've had to do this. I'm going to make the chat bigger so I can read it better. There we go. but but yeah, it's really fun to do these kinds of side by sides. I've got a plan on Thursday for the Patreon. I'm going to be streaming and doing a vertical of some different whiskeys that my girlfriend, who's in the other room right now, Yolanda, will be picking, and I will not know what I'm tasting. I think that's a really fun way to do tastings. It's exciting and engaging, and you need a couple people, which is hard to do in the current circumstances. But I've got somebody who's a captive audience who can't leave, so she's gonna help me. She's gonna help me with a blind tasting on Thursday. So for now, let's go ahead and dig into the first one. Oh man, do I want to start here? Or do I start in the middle? I initially planned on starting here, but you know what? I think I'm gonna start here because this is a known quantity. What kind of? Yeah, I got a vote for middle from the other room. The peanut gallery is saying middle. So I'll go ahead and start here. The Method Madness single grain Irish whiskey. This is something I've tasted before. I made a video about, but you know, as whiskeys sit open, as they you know, are exposed to air, it's a great way to have flavors change. Now, unlike wines, whiskeys don't age in the bottle. I think that's a common misconception that you're going to have a whiskey that's 18 years old and then it sat on the shelf for 5 years, so it's a 20, you know, what is that? Math's hard. 23-year-old whiskey. That's not how this works. Wine will change in the bottle, and a lot of times you'll hear wine sommeliers talk about how, you know, oh, it's really starting to open up now. The 2009s are having a good year this year. That's because the wine is actually actively changing. But once you've finished the distillation process and you pulled the whiskey out of the wood and you've taken the air away, I mean, if you take away the air and the sunlight, it's got nothing left in it to change. There's nothing active and living in it. Whereas the, you know, the yeast, when you first start with it, is how you're getting the sugars and the alcohols and bring all the flavors. So this, I don't remember why I was talking about that. I had some reason to talk about age and to talk about aging in a bottle. Oh, that's why, because this one's been open the longest. This is open brand new. This is open brand new. This has been open the longest. And it's been several weeks, maybe even a couple months since I tasted this for the video. So that means it certainly had an opportunity to change. I think it'd be really fun to reference back to that video and check out this video and see if you notice the different notes I've got. I will also say I've had this glass sitting out with the whiskey in it for quite a while. Similar to how bottles being open can change the flavor, having whiskey sit out can change the flavor. In fact, if you have a non-chill filtered whiskey, which this happens to be, I think all of these might be non-chill filtered, which essentially just means that they don't cool it down to filter it. When you non-chill filter, more of the product stays in the whiskey, so the flavors are more round and robust. Some people feel like it makes a bigger difference than others. I've got a lead on a side-by-side with a non-chill filter and a regular chill filtered product, but that's hard to come by because most brands kind of pick one or the other. Anyway, when you leave whiskey out in a glass, it really gives it a chance for the alcohol to dissipate and evaporate because this is still an active product. There's still a lot of liquor in this, the high alcohol content. So the flavors and the smells are going to change as you leave a whiskey out. Ooh, okay. So it's sharper than I remember it being. One of the like prototypical notes you're going to get out of an Irish whiskey is a tinniness or a metallic note. That sharpness and that singularness is really interesting. Some people really like it. I've never cared for it. I'm not the best person to be doing an Irish whiskey taste test, guys. But I'm here to do it. I'm here to drink it. We're going to have fun. And I also think it's fun to explore what other kinds of things are out there in the Irish space. Everybody knows Jameson, and most whiskey heads are going to know Redbreast. That's a very, very common brand. And there are several others that people will be like, oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Proper 12 got some traction because Conor McGregor made a whiskey brand. I didn't care for it. I'm not going to do a review of it because I'm not buying another bottle of it. But that's beside the point. These are whiskeys people do not know. It's very uncommon for people that aren't really into Irish whiskey to have heard of Tipperary or to have heard of Method and Madness, honestly. I did not know much about this until I talked with some people that have been in the game a long time. I was on the phone in Paris, France, of all places, looking at La Maison du Whiskey, a great place to visit if you ever go to Paris. They have amazing whiskey selections. And they had all three Method and Madness on the shelf for three different price points. I was reading tasting notes. I was comparing what they looked like. I was reading reviews online. I went with this one in part because it was cheap, because I am a government employee. I don't make a lot of money. But I also picked it because I really like the fact that it's a single grain Irish whiskey and that it's matured in bourbon barrels. I know I really like bourbon, so I figured this is going to have some interesting notes alongside the bourbon. And I also like that it's finished in virgin Spanish oak. What caught my eye about that is two parts. First, I think Spanish oak is interesting. You know, there are different kinds of oak: American oak, French oak, Spanish oak, and each one has different components that it contributes to the flavor profile. I haven't spent enough time with specific types of oak to be able to offhand go, yes, that's been in French oak, yes, that's been in Spanish oak, but I know that it has an effect. I will say, based on the very limited experience with the French oak, I tend not to like it because I get a lot more cocoa notes and rich, round, creamy notes, and those tend not to be my thing unless they're paired very well with some other flavors. But the virgin Spanish oak means that the barrel was a first fill barrel. This was not finished in a barrel that had had something else in it. And much like bourbon, that means the liquor is going into the barrel, hitting the wood after probably being charred, and just being absorbed right into it, which means the liquor gets absorbed into the wood, and the flavors of the wood go back into the liquor. It's a very fun process. Maybe someday I'll be able to do it myself. But so, after blathering on for a couple minutes, the sharpness has kind of dissipated. I'm getting just very sweet, rich, fruity notes now. Maybe like a red berry, even perhaps. I will say I've got these glasses a lot fuller than I typically do for tasting videos. Partly because I figured on a live stream, what the hell, if somebody wants to ask a question, I might go on for 10 minutes, or I might just do what I've just done and go on for 10 minutes on my own freaking question. But having more whiskey gives me more time to drink it, and more time to chat with you all, which is exactly why I'm doing these things. But that can also affect the flavor and the nose. I don't think when I did the initial video that I was getting fruit and that much initial sweetness. It was very grain centric, a very sharp grain note, and I picked that up on the nose. Unfortunately, I do remember one of the notes. I love going in blind, but if you remember a note that they give you, it's hard to avoid. I remember the note pencil shavings, and which is not something I typically look for in something I'm about to consume, but I do get pencil shavings on this. And you might say, well, what the hell do pencil shavings smell like? Fresh cut wood, but it's processed wood. So if you go out and cut a tree down with a chainsaw, they're going to be a lot more almost herbal, almost like hay kind of notes mixed in with the woodiness. The sharp metallic nature, along with the sweet grain, that really gives you a sense that this has got pencil shavings in it. But I'm also getting this wonderful sweet fruit. Yeah, that was kind of my thinking when I first read pencil shavings as well. I was like, I don't think I want that. But luckily, it doesn't taste like pencil shavings. So I've had a lot of whiskeys smell really good and taste bad. So it's kind of fun to see one that smells okay, not my thing, and then tastes pretty good. But yeah, I guess I'm getting like a red berry, perhaps. It smells fantastic. It's the sharpness in the initial hit kind of scares a lot of people off, I think. But once you get past it and kind of get used to it, your body adapts, both in taste and with the nose. If you start drinking like a barrel proof whiskey, something 55, 60, 65%, if you haven't had anything else to drink and you just take a sip of that, it's going to kick your ass. It just will, even if you're used to it. And some people like that. Some people like that initial hit. In fact, some people, some people for barrel proof whiskey for them is like crack. The first hit's the best, and they always are chasing after that. They want it bigger and better and stronger. But I kind of like the nuance and mixing it up a little. So yeah, going back to it, yeah, I'm definitely getting the cherry, maybe a red berry, like a raspberry. The grain is definitely prominent. I was talking about the pencil shavings before, but I'm also getting like a hint of maybe like salt water, like the sea. Like I'm trimming a pencil by the sea before I'm about to sketch a beautiful. I don't know. That's the image in my mind. Sometimes it's fun to think about images and like think where the whiskey takes you. Uh, this definitely takes me to a meadow by the sea, which is a pretty great place to be. Honestly, I'd much rather be there than here now. Even though I love this home, meadow by the sea sounds pretty nice. Let's give it a taste. Yeah, see, I know, I haven't had anything to drink today because I got a lot of burn out of that. And this is not a burn in whiskey. This is 46% alcohol, which almost certainly means it's been proofed down. Um, it's fresh. It's sweet. It's a little bit of wood notes on the back. Um, I'll go ahead and tell you all now. Uh, one of the things that I'm going to be doing during this tasting and all live tastings that may be a little annoying is kind of chewing my whiskey. There's different terms for what that is. I like the term Kentucky Chew, which comes from the old time bourbon distillers who would do a tasting and kind of making that noise. People would come in and see them that hadn't been experienced with that world and just thought they were crazy. It makes a difference. It's like aerating the whiskey in your mouth. Um, if you've ever watched people that are professional wine tasters, they do a very similar thing, but it's more of they do that. They'll suck it up and it aerates the wine into the mouth. With whiskey, you can kind of slosh it around and get the same effect without having to create that rush. And part of that is because the alcohol can be overpowering when you do that rush. You're not going to get that if you just kind of chew on it. So I'm going to chew on it. Mm, God, it's good. The honey is really prominent to me right off the bat. Very honey sweet. It's a very sweet whiskey. For people that don't like sweet whiskey, this might not be the best option. People that like something with more burn and more spice. Um, Justin has a great question. What's a good first bottle of whiskey slash bourbon to try? I used to drink quite a bit of Gentleman Jack, but never as a sipper. Great question, Justin. Um, I think when you're talking about getting into whiskey, uh, the bottle makes a difference, but it's more important to think about how you're drinking it. And by that I mean, you talked about having a lot of Gentleman Jack. I assume you would mix it with Coke or some sort of other, sparkling soda or something sweet, something carbonated. Um, maybe you go with a cocktail. Maybe you have an old fashioned. Um, Anything you can do to near yourself closer to standard whiskey. I would not be afraid at all to put whiskey in a glass that's more like these glasses. Segue. Um, these are rocks glasses. They're called the Dublin collection. These are actually um, crystal rocks glasses. These are great glasses for that kind of thing. Well, he said nope as shots. LOL. Well, that's actually better. I'll be honest, Justin. That's better. If you've been taking shots, you'll know. Um, uh, yeah, I know, Chris. You're right. I probably shouldn't have pointed out all the chewing, but people will forget. Don't worry. Um, yeah, the doing something as a shot means you're used to the burn, and the burn won't bother you. Um, and that's usually the biggest hurdle for people to get over when they're trying to get into whiskey or spirits of any kind, really. So if you're used to taking shots, I think your best bet is to start with like an old fashioned. Take the whiskey, put in just a little bit of simple syrup, which is super easy to make, by the way. Some simple syrup is a cup of sugar, a cup of water, stir it on the stove until it's all dissolved. You're done. That's it. So easy. Just make sure you have bubbling water before you finish, and it's a little thicker. That's it. Um, so put a couple of tablespoons of simple syrup, couple of ounces of whiskey, and then bitters is the only other thing you're going to need. Now, you can buy bitters at almost any liquor store. They'll probably set you back, I don't know, $5, $10. If you don't like them, friggin' send them my way because I'll use them. But yeah, so going into it with like a simple syrup and some bitters, you're going to get a real pure whiskey flavor, but it's not going to be as sharp as a shot, and it will be something you'll be able to enjoy and get your head around. And then as you get used to it, you can kind of pull some of those elements out, strip them back a little bit. I know people that have drank just straight bourbon with bitters. That's kind of like a process of walking back to something that's a straight whiskey. And I also would say that I would continue drinking in these kinds of glasses. Um, these are really good for cocktails, and they're really good for opening up the smells and the tastes of whiskey without necessarily having to have the awkward experience that you're gonna have with one of these. But they're also not going to be as sharp. So if I was gonna, but I know that was a lot of time, Justin. I just spent not answering your question. So let me actually answer your question. The lawyer in me can't help but explain around everything. To answer your question, a good first bottle of bourbon would be Buffalo Trace. Um, Buffalo Trace is hard to beat. Woodford Reserve, hard to beat. If you like things that are sweeter, Maker's Mark is a very good option. I personally don't care for Maker's Mark, full disclosure, but a lot of people really like it and always go back to it. And segue again, particularly people who like Irish whiskey. Um, Walking back the segue. For all of you watching this, I'm going to give these away tonight um, during this live stream. This whole box of all these glasses, and these are real crystal. So you got a chance to win something fun for tuning in. Cheers. It'll come up a little bit later. It'll come up organically. I'll pick a date. I'll pick some kind of question. Probably it'll be based on a date, but I'll pick some sort of question. If you answer the question, first one in the chat to answer it gets the glasses, and we'll figure out how to get those distributed at a later point. But there's a chance to win something, guys. It's always fun here at the Drink Pro. But yeah, great question. Thanks, Justin. I think if you're going with the with a bourbon, that's a great place to start. I think if you're going with a Scotch, I am a big believer in Scotch is really trying to open up to people too. There are a lot of Scotches out there that are really beginner Scotches intentionally. And that's not a slight against them. I think they're fantastic Scotches, but they're intentionally designed to get people who aren't used to drinking Scotch into drinking Scotch. So my choice for that would be the Glenlivet Founders Edition, which is a blended, I believe, Glenlivet product, but it's a really fantastic. It's light, it's fruity, it's sweet, it's airy, it's really great. Yeah, Trevor's absolutely right. Balvenie and Dalmore are great options for scotches as well. Balvenie Caribbean cask, if you want something sweeter, I've heard great things about. I still need to get my hands on a taste of that. Those are some great Scotch options as well. So in the world of Irish whiskey, unfortunately, like I said, it's not really my area of expertise, but I would probably say Redbreast is a great place to start. That's the dog. That's Yolanda, and that's a dog.
He asked who the dog was.
He did ask where the dog was. What's up, Jeremy? So we're gonna be giving these glasses away. Jeremy didn't see this, so yeah, at some point in the near future, I'm gonna ask a trivia question. If you, Jeremy's excited. If you answer the question, the first one correct to answer it in the chat wins the glasses. But let's get back to tasting this whiskey for a bit, okay? Took a big drink that time. Interestingly, I like it better with a big drink. Some whiskeys are like that. Some are meant to be sipped very, very small little nips, especially barrel proof whiskey. I always take little nips of barrel proof whiskey. But that one I took kind of a big gulp. Happy St. Patrick's Day, guys. And it was better. The fruitiness really came out. The sweetness kind of coated my whole mouth. It's got a lot of good things going for it. Looking for particular notes can be hard sometimes. When I'm getting this overpowering sweetness like I'm getting right now, It's just all honey. Maybe I'm getting a little bit of herbal notes, like a honeysuckle, but it's still very sweet. It's sweeter than a honeysuckle. Um, I'm also getting slight, as it kind of goes into the finish, I'm getting slight bitter and barrel notes on the tongue, slight pepper, like a white pepper. There's definitely some fruit in there too. I'm having trouble identifying what the fruit is. See, the nose on this is very different than the taste. The nose is very sharp, very metallic, honestly. Um, After going back from tasting it to the nose again, I get that metallic note again. Again. Really good, but hard to pull anything out. Maybe like a tropical fruit? Maybe like a tropical fruit note? Almost like a coconut? Maybe? I don't know. Yeah. It's either like a coconut or oh shit, what's the tropical fruit? Somebody name some tropical fruits in the chat. We can crowdsource the fucking answer here.
Passion fruit.
Passion fruit. That's the one. Oh, papaya. That's a good one. I don't really get papaya on this, but I can't believe I didn't think about it. Good answer, Jess. Yeah, that's pretty solid. Yeah, mango. I think of mango as being sweeter than this. I know I've said how sweet it is, but the sweetness is a very honeyed sweetness. It's honey. It's very syrup forward. Jess is eating papaya marmalade with my dinner right now. Ben, you're having a very similar experience to that I am right now, but you're not getting drunk, so you're missing out, girl. Uh, what am I finding on the finish? Come on now, Kyle. Let's focus in. What am I finding on this finish? There's like an apple note, maybe? Like apple skins. Apple skins is a note I've had a lot lately. I think it's because I never really thought about that as a note until I saw a video where somebody referenced it, and I was like, "That's a stupid pretentious note." And then I started using it. Oh, that can happen. Honeydew, that's a good fruit. I wonder what a honeydew whiskey would taste like. If you ever found honeydew in a whiskey, reach out to me. Let me know. I want to try it. I want to do a side by side where I get a honeydew and sit it next to the whiskey and see if I find it. I'm not picking up a lot. I think I've kind of exhausted the notes in this. So let's go ahead and take a look at what they claim. All right. So on the nose, they say new pencil shavings. I remembered that one. Light rose petal. Woo! Almost had a man overboard situation there. I did mention that it was slightly vegetal, I think. I think I mentioned it was an herbal note. I could see how that would be read as floral. I think because of the metallic sharpness, I have trouble finding the floral. It really reads to me as like a soft herb. Um, if you've ever smelled like maybe like eucalyptus, I could get that. And then it says fresh rain on pine. I said there was the C. The pine note is bullshit. I don't fuck. There's no pine in this. That's crap. Another video I need to make. I'll just get a bunch of wood, line it up, smell it, taste things with it. We'll see. I get the fresh rain though. There's a weirdly like it's not a water quality, but it's like oh, there's actually a word for. I hope somebody looks this up after watching this video. There's a word for the smell that comes from fresh rain, and it's a very particular narrow turn. Uh, it's a very narrow term. Jess said, "Please do the wood video." I will. I'll fucking do it. I just need to get a bunch of pieces of wood. But the smell of fresh rain is such a specific smell that there are cultures where there's a word for it, and I believe it's Gaelic Irish whiskey. Oh, Eric calling in. There it is. Petrichor. That's the one. Look at him. Look at that. He's on it. Quick, man. Quick. Shout out to Eric. Eric is the one who helped me learn how to edit video, which has been really helpful for this whole process. So, tip of the cap that I'm not wearing. Let's go back to the tasting notes on this. It says warm toasted oak, zesty wood spices. The sweetness, I could see the toastedness. I got a lot of honey sweetness, but there is that very, very, very slight. It's not a char note. It's like a toasted marshmallow. About the oak, I don't get until the finish, so I don't really follow that. Then the taste, it says fresh peeled grapefruit. I would not call that grapefruit. I think it's either papaya or mango. It's a tropical fruit. That is not grapefruit. Stop lying to me, Method of Madness. All right. Let's talk about the finish for a minute. The finish here says it's sweet cereal, clove spiciness, and fresh mint. The sweetness from the mid palate is definitely, yeah, I agree. Suck it, grapefruit. The sweetness on the mid palate in this whiskey really feels like what they were calling that cereal note, because as honey flavors kind of evolve, they tend to become more cereal-like. And but calling it the finish, I feel like is misguided. That's too early in the process. Different whiskeys have different lengths for their finishes and their starts, and I feel like the finish on this was really. I can see the mint and the clove. There's an herbal characteristic. There's a spice to it. Right now, many seconds after my last tasting, I can see the clove and the mint. But the sweet cereal was too early in the pour for me to call that. So, all right, that is Method of Madness. See how I compare to my previous review, the previous video I've done. It's on my channel, youtube.com/thedrinkpro. Thank you all for joining me yet again. I mentioned before, I'm going to keep mentioning it. I'm giving away 4 of these wonderful crystal glasses for great old-fashioned glasses, guys. The Dublin collection. And like I said, they are real crystal. They are lead-free crystal. This has been confirmed. I'm a stickler for lead-free crystal because I don't want to have Alzheimer's. So, let's try the next whiskey. This one I'm really excited about, guys. Tipperary Boutique Selection. Watershed is the name of the product. Now, I believe Tipperary is actually the distillery. This is the Watershed batch. They've got fun little numbers on it. I kind of believe that, you know why, Jess. I kind of think that the numbering is just to make me feel better about spending as much money as I spent on this bottle. But it wasn't that expensive. I mean, I had no qualm. I think it was $70. And honestly, blind, that's hard to spend. But after having tasted this at a friend's house, shout out Sean, Sean Crane, good dude, helped me out with the taste. He's also the guy who's helped me taste other things in the past. So he's been a good friend of the show. Thanks, Sean. But we both, I opened the bottle at his house. He'd never tried it. And we both liked it so much. We had been drinking expensive, fantastic, delicious whiskey all night. And we finished the night with a Tipperary. And we both looked at each other and went, holy crap, that is good whiskey, after spending a lot of time on very expensive bottles. So to me, I couldn't wait to go to the store to pick this up. Luckily, I had an event that I went to. There's actually a little bit of video of that on my Facebook page if you want to see. I went to a tasting with the Bardstown Distillery. I hope to do more events like that in the future once we are get the all clear and are wandering around in public being idiots again. Right now, I'm going to keep being an idiot in private. Okay, so after that Method of Madness, which is very sharp and narrow, this is sweet in a very different way. That was very narrowly sweet. This is a rounded sweetness. And if you're curious what the hell that means, and you think I'm just blowing smoke up my ass, think about the difference between pancake syrup that's real and pancake syrup that's like Aunt Jemima. Aunt Jemima If you smell it, you're gonna know that it's not real maple syrup. It's gonna have the sweetness. It's gonna have maple flavoring. You can pull those notes out. But then when you get that real maple syrup and you take a bite of those pancakes, you go, wait a minute, this is a different thing. That's what this is. That is corn syrup. This is the real deal. It's uh it's a malty grain sweetness. I'm getting notes of oranges and lemons, very fruity, very citrusy. Oh god, guys, it smells so good. This is if you see this anywhere, pick it up. I'm not joking with you right now. This is one of the best values I've ever found. Yeah, Jess, I will come. We find a time, I'll let you share a pour of this for sure because you need to try this. It is one of the best values I've ever found, especially because I know a lot of people out there are stuck in bourbon. They like bourbon, but they won't explore out of it. If anything is going to convert you to something besides bourbon, it might just be this because it's relatively affordable and it's got wonderful notes that are reminiscent of bourbon but are distinct and they're doing their own thing. It's a great combination. I'm getting a little bit of baking spice in the nose, but the citrus, oh, maybe some cherry too. Oh my gosh. I'll be honest with you guys. When I first tasted this, I was pretty drunk. Uh, Tasting it now is going to be great because I'm almost entirely sober, excepting the maybe ounce, half ounce I got from that Method of Madness. Sober as a gopher. And the smell coming off of this is just exquisite. I wish we had smell-o-vision or smell tube or whatever. That'll be coming, maybe. I get some floral notes as well. There's so much going on in this, guys. I get the sweetness, the orange, the citrus. I keep smelling it. I get the baking spice. There's actually some clove in there. Definitely cherry, maybe some rose as well, and vanilla. I mean, I can't forget about vanilla. Vanilla is a very, very, very common note in whiskey in general, but it's in there as well. But I almost forget to talk about it because I'm so focused on the other notes. I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's got vanilla. What else has it got? But the vanilla in this is really wonderful. I prefer vanilla that's more like a vanilla bean, like a raw vanilla, because they're rounder, they're more robust, they're more unique and interesting and engaged flavors. The vanilla extract flavor you're going to get out of some whiskeys is very narrow and thin, and it can be very good, but it doesn't excite me the way vanilla bean excites me. So that's what I'm getting on the nose of this. Let's give this a taste. Mm, interesting. Very interesting. It's not what I remember it being. Not to say it's bad, but it makes me wonder, sometimes when you do a whiskey tasting, you kind of climb the mountain in different ways. You can start with a 40% alcohol whiskey and climb all the way to a high proof bottle. You can start with something that's just very mildly peated or not peated at all, and then grow in smokiness until the very end where you're drinking like an Octomore or something that's just all fucking peat and smoke and rich and like a smoker's lung in your mouth. A little gross, but what the hell. But once you've done that climb, you need a minute to take a breath. And this, when I first tasted it, was like a breath of fresh air. And it's very, very good right now, but it's not a breath of fresh air. I think it's because I haven't abused my palate sufficiently before drinking it. But we're going back in. I'm glad people like my crazy descriptions. Yeah, Eric, I don't think you're much of a fan of Pete, but I think I've got one that might change your mind. Tastes like a steak. That'll be reviewed later. Damn it, I'm gonna break something tonight. That'll be reviewed later. I've got a particular whiskey that tastes just like a porterhouse steak, and that's hard to say no to. But right now, we're not drinking Islay Scotches. We're drinking Irish whiskeys. Very floral. Shouldn't talk with my mouth full. I'm going to anyway. I don't care. Oh man, I'm getting a white chocolate on the mid palate, which is almost never something I pick up. The finish becomes soft and delicate with just a hint of pepper on the front of my tongue. The pepper is right here. There's not really a barrel note though, which surprises me. We talked about this being, we talked about the method of madness going into first fill casks. This is being aged in oak casks too, that I also believe are first fill. Let me see if I can find that again. But if memory serves me, this was being put in first fill bourbon casks. Yeah, okay. So they choose 6 first fill bourbon casks to do small batches of this whiskey. So yeah, so I would expect a lot more wood coming out of this. The sweetness of the bourbon cask style is definitely there. And I will say, by the way, um, the term first fill. Let's talk about that for a minute. First fill is a misnomer. It does not mean that nothing else has been in that barrel. It means that this is the first time something besides the original thing has been in that barrel. That's why they're first fill bourbon casks. So these were casks that, when they were fresh wood hit with a flame, they were charred. The first thing that went in them was bourbon, and they are now bourbon casks. But the first thing that was put in them after the bourbon is this right here. Now, why do they call it first fill instead of second fill? I have no idea. Why do they want intentionally confusing terminology? I don't know. Talk to Ireland. I got nothing to do with that. But what I do know is the sweetness from the bourbon is definitely showing up, but I expected more barrel notes, because the more you age spirits in a barrel, the less and less the barrel is going to show up, and the more and more you're going to get the other products that were in the barrel. And over time, the chemicals that make up flavor and smell might change and modify the way the barrel affects the whiskey, but that woodiness, that distinct oak flavor, is something you're going to get with early fills and first fills, proper first fills with nothing else in the barrel ever before. Not this what I'll call the English definition of first fill. I'm sure the Irish and the Scots would be really mad that I called that the English definition, but I don't care at all. Call your things what they are. Scotland, and England, and Ireland. Just call it like it is. America doesn't do that very well for everything. I like the term lift. Lift is much better than elevator. Bin, I like better than trash can, even though trash can is more descriptive. You know what a bin is. Throw it in the bin. You know what that means. And it's a bin. It's literally a bin. Anyway, okay, back to it. The grains are showing up for the party now. The sweetness and the maltiness is really there. I'm getting a hint of ooh, 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 ooh. There's a little sourness showing up mid palate to finish. Just a little bit, a little sour. Sour is a note people often stay away from with whiskey, but I think sour whiskey can be really good in subtle ways, which is kind of what I'm getting out of this. It's subtly sour in all the right ways. Um, God, there's no finish on this, but that's okay. Or maybe that heavy sigh didn't sound like it was okay, but it's okay. You don't need every whiskey to be full bodied and rough and tumble and just, taking you out. Sometimes a soft, gentle rocking you to sleep is really valuable. So let's go ahead and see what they say the notes are on this whiskey. They say the nose opens with strong vanilla, sweet fruit, and hints of grain. I think that's pretty close to what I had said. Um, I mentioned the vanilla later, but I also kind of said that, I tend to look around the vanilla. Get a lot of fruit notes. The sweet grain is definitely there. And the freshness of the grain really shows up. You get this sort of soft, um, it's not earthy. It really is like fresh cut wheat or something. This grainy note that's like out in the air. Black pepper rises on the palate, overtaken by vanilla fudge and just a trace of raisins. Bam! Vanilla fudge. That's what I'm talking about. I called it white chocolate, which I know is different from vanilla fudge, but I'm just happy to see that actually showed up. The black pepper is definitely there. It's still lingering with me. The raisins, though, I must not have much of a palate for raisins, guys. Yeah, I just don't get the raisins. I'm gonna have to buy some raisins and test out what the hell raisins taste like. Maybe I'll make that a whole live stream. These are raisins. This is what raisins taste like. The smooth finish is warm and comforting honey on hot buttered toast. I know I talked about the honey. I talked about the grain too, which is, the breadiness of toast definitely is grain. But I think that's part of the reason I said there was no finish to this. When I think about a finish, I rarely think of sweet. I rarely think of grain. I think of wood. I think of pepper. I think of spice. Uh, the notes that come to even chocolate sometimes. But the notes on a finish, I don't typically think of sweet and grain. Uh, but as I come back to this, I so the sweetness of the honey is all at the beginning. The first thing you taste is the sweetness, and it's a honey sweetness. But the finish is where you actually taste honey. I'm glad Yolanda is taking notes over here. You get the honey flavor on the finish, which is really interesting and wonderful. I don't know if I see the buttered toast. I certainly don't see the butter. I can see the grain, but the grain again, to me, it's following in from the initial taste. The grain comes, and then you get the non-finish, and maybe that's why they're calling it a finish because there isn't a proper finish on this. The bitterness and the pepper that I'm getting are not really a proper finish. Um, but it's so odd to me to have a finish that's sweet that way. It's not something I'm used to experiencing. Running out of table space here, guys. Before I go any further, I want to do the giveaway. There's 7 people in the chat. I think we had 12 at one point, so some of these suckers left too early because these are real crystal. There are 4 of them in this box. I'm giving them away for free if you can answer me one question. What question is it? I don't know yet. I gotta figure that out. Okay. Because I'm gonna look it up with you guys. Because I didn't have one in mind. How out of 6 people? Somebody's gonna take these freaking things home, and then I'm gonna drink my 3rd whiskey. Y'all are missing out. When was the first St. Patrick's Day parade? The year. I need the year of the first St. Patrick's Day parade in New York. No, wait, it's in Boston. In Boston.
Chicago.
Chicago?
Chicago's the biggest
Fuck.
in the US.
New question. No, scrap it. Scrap it. No. People that are stop Googling. It's not that's not it. All right. That was bad. So let's do it again. Much like the start of this live stream, the finish is gonna be better. When did St. Patrick, the real St. Patrick, die? What year? Give me the year St. Patrick died. The missionary. He's got a feast on March 17th, today, the Feast of St. Patrick. This might be a little trickier than I anticipated.
A better question is, what St. Patrick do for Ireland?
I got 461 from Trevor. I'm failing hard on my Googling. I'm usually quite good at Googling. This has been a fun live stream, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I got to agree with Trevor. 461. St. Patrick passed away. Trevor, you win the grand prize. Congratulations, sir. 4 crystal glasses. We'll find a way to get these to you ASAP. I will try not to ruin them in the meantime. I think I can avoid it. But yeah, St. Patrick, 461. Congrats, buddy. All right. Last but not least, let's take a drink of it. Now, you may be wondering what's in this glass. I don't know. Yolanda has poured this for me into my decanter. This is my decanter. It's great. This is a present for graduation from my parents. It's a nice thing to have. Yeah, Trevor, I would give the glasses a couple days just in case before you drink anything out of them. But I really don't have any idea what the hell this is. It looks like whiskey. That's all I got. So let's give it a smell here. It's got a real papaya smell to it. It's very fruity, very sweet. Let's hope you're right, Trevor. It's almost got a coconut note, maybe too. Maybe a peach. Very fruit forward. I'm not getting much else. Just really very fruit forward on the nose. Let me give this a taste. Oh, guys. Oh, guys, that is wonderful. Woo! See ya.